24/7 Sports.
Hi Ryan, that was a lot of fun on Saturday. We should do that more often.
Amen.
Get into some of the young guys that are stepping up this spring. Like CJ Hicks was taking some reps in the first team. I know you guys are rotating a lot.
Yeah.
CJ Hicks, Jordan Hancock, maybe some other guy with Joe Royer. I don't know, some young guys that maybe didn't play much last year or play at all. They're stepping up this spring.
Yeah, I thought Saturday was great. I want to thank all the students for coming out. That was a great atmosphere, and it was great to feel those guys and their support certainly year round. When I've had a chance to thank them after practice, but publicly want to thank them for all their support, the whole student body, because it means a lot to our team. And there were a lot of guys out there that stayed for a long time. I know they spend time maybe signing autographs, taking pictures. So I thought that was great day for all of us. Great day recruiting. So like you said, maybe you do more of that. I like that idea. There's been a lot of guys who have had great opportunity to step up. And I guess this is practice 9, so we still have Wednesday, Friday this week. We come back and have another week before we head into the spring game. So this is kind of where you find out where guys are in terms of they're going to start to separate themselves. And like you said, I thought CJ's and Gabe have both done a good job coming in. Chip has done a good job coming in. Those young linebackers and the one side have really, JK and Jordan have both done a really good job of coming on. I think that's been good. Cam Martinez and Tanner are doing a good job inside. Safeties have looked good. And some of the younger defensive linemen have done a good job as well. So if you're trying to identify who some of the younger guys are, I think everybody's really grown now. Who can get into the 2 deep and get on the field? I think that's we'll find out as we head towards the end of spring and then the preseason.
Are we maybe talking too much about the jack position? Like, might you guys use more of the traditional, 4 down front defensively?
I think you'll see with Jim's defense, there's different personnel groupings, and so different roles, and how much some of those positions grow as time goes on is based on how well our guys can jump into it and what we think fits the personnel that we have. But that package, with that jack in there is it's a good package. Now, again, how much do we want to use that? That's yet to be determined. But a good portion of that stuff's been installed now, and now we see what happens with it.
We'll go third row, middle. Colin Gay, Rivals.
Hey Ryan, I've asked you before about Steel Chambers and him having an entire offseason as a linebacker, and I'm curious, 9 practices in, do you see him kind of taking control, kind of taking advantage of this opportunity to kind of lead the room, because he is one of the most experienced linebackers in that room, right?
He is, and now we'll play with 3 linebackers in the game, and we'll also play with 2 linebackers in the game.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of guys in there, so it's been very competitive. And I thought what Steele did last year was significant, not being able to have a whole year under his belt of playing the position. Now he's got a whole spring with Jim coaching the linebackers. He's grown. Obviously he was my running back at this point last year, so he's much further along than he was at this point last year. But that group has more experience than it's had, and we have some good young guys who are stepping in there as well.
And I know a couple of guys weren't available at the this practice Saturday, G. Scott and Cam Babb. I'm just wondering what the status would be of them moving forward, if there's any updates there.
Yeah, no, G was out there today, and just on a daily basis, based on injuries or other things, sometimes guys aren't available, but we expect those guys to be available moving forward.
Same row, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, Donovan Jackson, we saw him out practicing a tackle on Saturday in addition to guard. How much has he been cross-training between those 2 positions, and is that more about building depth for now or about his possible future?
More about building depth for now. He's mostly been a guard. Even last year, he played some of that tight end position, and then had played some tackle during mostly practice. Last year, I don't know if he ever played any reps at tackle last season, but he's very intelligent, very athletic, can process information at a pretty high level for his age. So, we do that as, sort of a depth, kind of rain insurance moving forward. As we start to get some guys back, like Josh Fryer and some of the guys who are a little nicked up, to move back to guard. But right now he's running with the 1s at left guard.
And Lecky Cavazos was another guy. He wasn't out there on Saturday. What's his status right now?
Yeah, same thing. Just, there's certain guys that on a daily basis aren't available, and then we just kind of, go from there.
Second row left, Bill Landis, The Athletic.
Ryan, the sport, I guess, is in a place right now where a guy like Kyle McCord might look around because he's a talented guy who's kind of entrenched as a number 2 right now behind another very talented quarterback. Did you have to have much conversation with him about that, leading into offseason, and I guess how has he embraced sort of his position right now in the depth chart?
I think he's had a good spring. You guys were out there, you saw some of the balls that he threw, and having the whole year under his belt now, he's that much better. And he's competitive. He wants to beat Ohio State. He's made that clear to us, and he's going to be ready. In that first game, if he needs to be in that game. I mean, that's the thing is, when you feel like you're the backup, sometimes you feel like you're miles away, but you're only one snap away. And I think he understands that. He understands what it means to get developed. And I think that's what his focus has been on.
What are some of the areas of emphasis, I guess, for him in terms of development this spring?
Second year in the offense and having just a better feel for it. The anticipation of routes, throwing the ball on time, pocket movement, and just, overall decision making.
Front row right, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, I know the jack position's only been, I guess, recently installed, but from the times you've seen it, I guess, in practice, what do you think is advantageous about it? What kind of do you think it does for your defense? What's it been like to go against it?
You can, you can just be multiple with the spacing up front, and that creates a little bit of indecision for the line. And, while you have the ability to line up with 4 down spacing, now you can change to more of a 3 down with that position. And you can kind of change the angles of the blocking and the double teams. And anytime you do that, now, the offensive line's not as sure of themselves, but we're keeping it consistent for the other guys on the field, which is great.
And from the period we watched on Saturday, it seemed like the defensive line, defensive front did a pretty good job of getting pressure. Just what were your kind of takeaways from the front of the defense?
Yeah, I think the depth that we create at defensive line is going to be a huge advantage for us. I think our 2s and 3s are further along on the defensive side of the ball than they are on offense right now. So you're seeing a lot of pressure on the quarterback, especially with the 2s and 3s. We're hoping to get some of those guys back on offense, but I think when you look at the depth and some of the guys at defensive end and at defensive tackle, we're 2, almost 3 deep in some of those positions right now, which is going to be huge going into the fall.
Fourth row left, Jacob Bench, the Lantern.
Hey Ryan, we've talked with Jim Knowles sometimes about the safety position in this defense, and he said that he wants to be a safety-driven defense and whatnot. We got to see Ron Hickman and Xander McAllister kind of work somewhat as a boundary in the field safety and whatnot. How do you notice those 2 guys, because they are veteran, how have they kind of meshed together with Tanner coming into Ohio State?
Well, it seems to be well. I think the guys respect Tanner. I think they like the way he approaches the game. He's, like I told you before, a little bit of a player coach because he knows the system and has been in the system. But you have to have the right guy who walks in that room because it's a prideful group. But I think his approach has been great. I think he just has a good mentality around those guys, and he's just gone about the business of working really hard to earn a position. And I think he and Cam both are grinding at that position, and pleased with what we see. And I think the communication of those 3 safeties is important. They all have to be on the same page because we're so multiple. And I think every practice that we get under our belt, we're getting more and more, really fluid in that language.
And we've gotten to watch your quarterbacks play in practice, and I think we all know about CJ, Kyle, and Devin, but with Chad Ray being another guy on your roster, I wanted to ask you just about his background, your impressions of him, just how he's joined the team and whatnot.
We kind of, it's tough when you're able to kind of come in here at spring practice at the beginning, didn't have the opportunity to go through mat drills or the off season. And so that's not easy to do. And sometimes that role is a role that can be a little thankless, but we certainly appreciate it. Everybody's role is the same, or isn't the same around here, but their importance is just as important as everybody else to keep the operation going. So, JP and Jagger last year really did a great job with that, with the scout team, with whatever needed to be done. And so, he's going to do the same, but he was a little bit behind because he joined us right at the beginning of spring practice.
Second row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Same thing with Colin, with Devin, 9 practices in now. We got to see him a little bit more on Saturday. He had good moments, but also some moments that showed he was a freshman. Can you talk about his progression in the first 9 practices?
Yeah, pleased with the first 9 practices. It can be a little tough. So there sometimes with the 3s, but he's making it work. You saw his athleticism and what he can do pulling the ball, and he's got a strong arm. So the more reps he gets, the better he's going to be.
And you talked adamantly about wanting 4. I know scholarship numbers are kind of tight right now, but is there any plan to add a 4th guy?
We'll always keep an eye on it because we want to have 4. Doesn't always work that way. There's been times we had to add a guy like in August, so we'll be on our toes and ready to adapt, but we feel good about these 3 going into the fall.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Letterman Row.
Right, after pro day, CJ stayed and talked to us for like 20 minutes, and he didn't have to. Took photos with every single person that was in line on Saturday. Have you noticed a change in him from last spring, last September, with sort of face of the program situation he's in now?
Well, I don't see a change with him as a person, and I think that's what's been great. He's pretty much kept it, he's been level-headed about it. I think we talk about after that, second game and losing to Oregon and kind of where that was and the shoulder and to where he's at right now, it's pretty remarkable. And a lot of that is because he didn't ride the roller coaster, and he's been strong, he's been steady. And now it's the same thing. Now is, things are going well coming off that Rose Bowl and being a Heisman Trophy finalist. He's kind of been level though. He hasn't really rode that roller coaster, and you can see his humility and how much he appreciates all the support and all the support that you guys give, and certainly the students. It says a lot about who he is as a person.
To go back to G and the tight end, Cade going over there and maybe Royer coming on, Mitchell be healthy. With so much hype and expectation for G, and I don't know if it's connected the way he envisioned. What do you see as his role moving forward?
Well, that whole room gives us some real athleticism this year, and the more roles that they can take on, then the more they can do. So when you first look at a tight end, you say, can he block a 7 technique? Okay, if he can, you check that box. Can he run routes? You check that box. Can he line up on the perimeter and stock block? Can he come across and crunch? Can he insert the counter game? There's a lot of job descriptions for a tight end. Can he pass protect? And the more of those job descriptions you can check off, the more they can play, and the more they can stay on the field, the more we can do with them. So that's, when you make the transition over there, just like Cade did, like Mitch did. Mitch really went from running back coming out to this position of tight end. It's the same thing. Joe is a tight end coming out, but he's more of a receiver. G was a receiver, who got moved to tight end, and then Cade was more a linebacker, they got moved to tight end. So when you make those transitions, it's a developmental position. It takes a little time to learn how to do those jobs. You have to change your body. You have to understand it, because you're involved in all three phases of protection, the run game, and then also in the routes. So, again, the more that they can do, then the more of a role they're gonna have.
Far right, Clay Hall, WSYX.
How much your confidence been restored in the defense, and can practice or a spring game confirm some of that, or only September 3rd will you really know?
You see signs that lead you down, belief in what you're seeing. And every day you got a pretty good idea what's going on. You have to go put it on the field, like you're saying, but so the spring game, guys will get out there and they'll play and they'll compete, and that'll be a lot of fun for a lot of people, and certainly looking for a great crowd there. I think it's going to be a great day for us. But in terms of understanding where we're at, we still have a bunch of practices in August and preseason to figure out where we're at. But we're certainly off to a good start, and we got a good group over there.
How much Notre Dame are you doing now?
Some, but not a ton. Now it's more about the fundamentals. We certainly know that they're out there. We're keeping an eye on it and watching the film here and there. But for the most part, it's just the fundamentals, and it's about competing and getting the offense and defense installed.
Do you have a format for the spring game?
Not yet. We have to look at our depth, and we have to look at our who's healthy and those type of things, and make some decisions. But we're not that far away, so we'll probably by the end of the week get a pretty good feel for what it's going to be.
We'll go deep right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Brian, everybody's talking about Jim and how he's kind of implementing his defense and how the progress is there. But have you seen the things from Tim and Perry that you expected to see this spring as far as those particular units and how they're coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've done a great job, both of them. Larry as well. I think just overall, there's the energy over there. You can see the guys are playing with confidence. They enjoy the defense. And make a mistake, you make a mistake, but you're going to coach it up full speed, and the guys enjoy playing for them.
Is it like, you're talking a lot about defensive confidence and a little bit of freshness. Is that a change from what you guys saw at this time last year, trying to prepare to make your defense what you thought it could be? Is that like a big change from what you saw in the past to this year?
I think anytime you have experience under your belt, you're just more confident because it's not for the first time. And then when you change what you're doing, there's a little bit of freshness, like you're mentioning. But then also just the way that the guys are attacking, the way Jim calls the defenses. So I think when you mix all three of those things up, that's why you're seeing a little bit of that juice.
Third row middle, Zach Carpenter, Rivals.
Yeah, Ryan, huge recruiting weekend. Even though it may not pay off immediately, how are you guys feeling about the progress you made with a lot of those guys?
Yeah. Obviously can't talk specifics, but I think it was a great recruiting weekend. recruiting is across college football. The idea is that, you know, when guys wanna commit, they're done. You know, they're gonna commit to your school, they've made their decisions, they've made their decisions strong, they're not gonna go visit any other school, and then they're all in and they help you recruit the class. And I think that's where guys are trying to figure that out. You know, am I ready to finally make the decision? There's some guys that are really close, and I think, like you said, we're gonna see the next couple of months, a bunch of really good stuff come our way. But I just wanna make sure that they're done. I don't want them to visit other schools, it's not very good policy. So if they need to go check out some other schools, they'll go ahead and do that. But once their mind's made up, they wanna be a Buckeye, and then I tell them their life changes forever, and that's it. Really good work done this week. I thought our staff did a great job. I thought the atmosphere was awesome, the students were great, and so put ourselves moving forward in a good spot.
Yeah, and once a player is committed to you guys, I'm curious, how closely do you guys monitor their strength and conditioning program to make sure they're sort of doing the right things at that level?
Well, we really can't do anything until they sign, and then we can start to get involved with that and start to send out some of those types of things. But up until then, they know what we do, but typically we just tell them to follow their high school plan, and they get a chance to see us, some of our drills, and kind of learn how we do things here. But we're not allowed to get really involved in that until after they sign.
Second row middle, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
To go back to Steele and Chip as well, Jim was in here talking last week about how much he likes guys who have that running back background and what they can bring to linebackers. So the experience, are those kind of one-off examples, do you think? Or the experience you're having with Steele and Chip, does it make you kind of reassess how you're recruiting linebackers, what athletes you're looking for there in the future?
I mean, I think anytime you have somebody like Jim said, I didn't hear him say that, but I agree with him, is that, when you have the ability to take somebody who's a running back and move them to linebacker, I think over the years, some of the great ones had done that, just because athletically, in high school, you want the guy who's the best athlete on the field carrying the ball, and then all of a sudden they move to linebacker. But everyone's different, so we're not gonna go try to find a bunch of running backs to play linebacker. It's just when those type of things work. But Chip played linebacker in high school. Steele played, when they came, he went to Arizona State, and then we recruited him as a linebacker. We thought that was his best position for him, and played really good at linebacker, by the way, at Hogan. But then decided this is what he thought his highest ceiling was. And it was the same thing with Steele coming out. We had the conversation that, we're gonna start a running back, but we can quickly go to linebacker if that's what we think makes sense. So it wasn't like it was a huge shift. They had done that anyways. But the more athletic you can be at that position, the better. The better ball skills, spatial awareness, diagnosing plays, I think that all adds up.
Did Tommy's performance in the Rose Bowl, Tommy Eichenberg, show you guys something new from him? And was there anything from that performance that is now carried into the spring for him?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's given him some momentum, for sure. I think he's seeing things. I think he enjoys being in Jim's meetings and in the defense. I think for Tommy, it's just, as you start to add up these reps over and over, you think about 2 years ago with Tuff and Pete and Barron and Justin Hilliard, those guys had played a lot of football, and then they played veteran that season. We're hoping to see that next step of progression with the linebackers and really a lot of guys on this team, because at this point last year they had not played. None of those guys had any reps. So the more you play, the slower the game is.
Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
You're right, certainly compared to last year, the 2D, I think, is much more settled. You talked about separation in these next 2 weeks. What areas, what players, what positions are you really looking at to make that jump, and where's your focus going to be?
I can't sit here and tell you there's one position, because as you go through, you look at the corners, you look at the safeties, the linebackers, the D-line. Like you said, we're kind of too deep at most positions, and so that's great, but you try to figure out, and now it's a little bit too early, but to say, are we ready to put those guys in a game and just rotate them? Or is it, this is the starter, and then he'll kind of go in there and get some reps when appropriate. We do need to get more depth in the offensive line, that's for sure. I feel pretty good about, 5, 6 guys, but we need to get to 7, 8, 9, which was a strength for us the last couple of years. Receiver, kind of same thing, who's gonna be the top 6 or 7 guys that we can count on in a game. But across the board, I think the depth has been strong, but it's one thing to just be in the game, it's another thing to be the guy that you're counting on. And I think that's when you go into a new team, it's just a different feel. Running back, same thing. I know, we can get out of Trey and Mayan, now Evan Pryor is starting to make a push to see if he can get some reps in the game. So you know, every time, we say it every year, when we come in for that first meeting after the last game, so the Rose Bowl's done, we come in, those seniors are now gone, some new guys have moved up front, and then everybody's moved down a couple seats. And these seats right here are different than the ones when they were back there, than they were back there, you know, and I think learning what those roles are gonna be, as someone you can count on, leadership is all important.
A couple follows. Is he not number 6, first of all, in terms of the offensive lineman?
Yeah, I mean, he's right there, he's doing a good job, he's been through a lot this year, and proud of the way he's played the last few practices, so if he can keep pushing, then he's a guy that's gonna play.
And with receivers, you know, Cam Bad wasn't there Saturday. We obviously didn't see him. How's his progression been? Has he been healthy?
He's been healthy. You know, he had a little, you know, bump in the road that, you know, we were a little worried about, but it didn't come back as a big deal, so that was great. I thought up until that practice, he had been really practicing at a high level, really had a chance to have an impact on his offense. I think he will, so we'll get him back in a couple weeks and get back to work.
I have time for just a couple more. Front row right, Tim May, Letterman row.
Yeah, Ryan, as you sit back there and watch like CJ run the offense, like Saturday, that's what I like about Student Appreciation Day. I get to stand right there almost close to you and just see the chaos in front of him and the lines running a stunt and the safety's coming down and all this kind of stuff is going on. And yeah, he's making sense of all that while also making sense of the coverage. Where does that come from? I mean, you dealt with that as a player yourself, as a quarterback. I mean, do some guys come along with that better than others? And is that really the fine line that separates the good from the great?
Yes, absolutely. And I think maybe being down there, you get to recognize and appreciate that. You know, it's like standing on 315 North sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, with cars buzzing by you. When you do 7-on-7 or you're throwing routes on air, that's why I like when we do our pro day out here, the quarterback's just throwing to one guy. Okay, it's fine, but that's not football. 7-on-7 is not football. What you saw up close and personal was football. And I think when people say, you know, does he have it? They usually talk about the quarterback position. That's part of it. Just understanding what's going on, being able to stand in there with poise and process all that's going on. When you got 21 other guys on the field at that time, and that's part of playing the position. Like you said, it's hard to teach.
Yeah. And one of the things that, and speaking of the other side of the ball, do you see, as you watch the video of y'all's practices, when y'all go 11-on-11 and good on good, whatever you want to call it, do you see an integrated unit on the other side? Meaning, and that's not slamming last year and stuff, but do you see kind of like what you were hoping to see with a system, so to speak, from Jim and stuff, bringing that in?
One of the things that I see is just first off in the meetings, you know, Jim's up in front of the whole group, and there's a lot of interaction within the group, and the teaching's been really good, and it's all tied in, all 3 levels. And that's what we're seeing on the field as well.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
And final questions, third row right, Doug Lameries, Cleveland.com.
When you were a quarterback, were you good at that, seeing the field, digesting everything, visualizing eyes, brain? How big a part of that was your game?
That was my only game. Because I was not athletic. I was not very fast. So that's what gave me a chance.
So when you have a quarterback who you feel like is getting that and is seeing it and connecting eyes to brain, do you feel like you understand that on a very deep level? What's that like for you as you watch CJ do this?
Yeah, I think you're hitting on something there. I think that when you're in meetings and we talk about things and you start to see it happening fast and quick at the same processing level that as a coach you see it, that's when you have something really special. And I think that's what separates the great ones in the NFL. When you look at, you know, the Bradys and the Rodgers and the Breezes and all the guys, you know, Russell Wilson, who they're like coaches. They see it like coaches because they watch so much film and they study it so much. There's not much difference there. And that's when you know you have somebody really good who can process information at a high level, but then also have the athleticism to be able to perform and make the throws and do what they need to do.
Unlike you.
That's why I'm here.
When we were talking with Luke Whippler the other day, he seems like a high IQ football guy. We know he's a tape cruncher. CJ, high IQ quarterback. When you have a center and a quarterback like that, what do you see with the two of them understanding the game and then understanding the game together?
Agreed. I think when both of those guys are as conscientious and watch as much film as they do and understand it like that, that really helps going into last year, you know, we didn't have that, 2 new guys. When Dwayne and Mike Jordan came in, you know, new. So anytime you go through that every year learning everything for the first time, you know, you come to the sideline, do you see this? Yeah. Like you don't even have a reference point to go back to. These guys at least now have a reference point, and they put the work in, they're conscientious, it matters a lot to them, I mean a lot, and they're very intelligent and skilled.
And last thing, different side of the ball, CJ Hicks, you know, again, his name came up. A guy like Trayvon Henderson last year as a true freshman, obviously the opportunity was there, he also had the skills to take advantage of it. In your time in college football, how has your view of playing true freshmen evolved? Obviously opportunity matters, but what does it take for a guy to even have a shot to really have an impact as a true freshman?
I think it's hard nowadays to start playing as a true freshman if you don't come in mid-year. I wouldn't have said that in the past, but it does make a difference now. Now, JT did it, Donovan played last year, you know, some guys have done it, but I think the mid-year does help. Not that I'm trying to promote that, but that's just the truth. When you have a whole spring under your belt and the whole off season, that matters. But I do think that everyone's on a different journey. And I think the focus always has to be on development. Now, where along the line is your development? There are 3-year guys, there are 4-year guys, there are 5-year guys, now there are 6-year guys. And, you know, each guy has to understand their development could be different than the guy next to him. Their journey could be different than the guy who's sitting in the locker next to him. But the end goal is the same, is to be a great player at Ohio State, beat the team up north, win the Big Ten championship, and win a national championship. And then along after that, hopefully have an opportunity to go play in the NFL. And everyone needs to understand their journey could be different. Now that being said, we want to get guys on the field as soon as we can, because especially for those guys who are maybe gone in 3 and 4 years, you know, we don't want to wait around, they don't want to wait around. And, you know, Gene Smith and I talked about this a year ago at this point. We knew we had some young guys that we had to get on the field that we're going to live with growing pains. But when you do that, you're able to, you know, the next year and the year after, you know, get the benefits of the experience in that moment. So,
Great. Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks.